Hello and welcome to DIY Therapy. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will. With me as always is Andy.
You've lulled me to sleep.
With my sweet verbs.
What?
I don't know.
What? There
had to have been verbs in there, right?
You are having some issues getting out, like...
Words,
aren't you? Yeah,
yes.
Just
I told you.
Human interaction, adult interaction. Will's been around his kids too much.
And I speak to them like adults, but if certain topics don't come up, you don't use those words, so your brain has trouble finding them.
Is that how that works, or is that just your brain?
No, that's the way my brain works.
Okay, all right.
It's like a room, actually, it's better. It's like my dresser.
Oh, this will be good.
You know, I wear the same 3 shirts because they're on the top, right?
Yeah, this is true.
I never dig through and like, hey, I haven't worn this shirt in a while. So no, it's like I'm moving it up. First shirt's on there. It's clean. It's fine.
Yep. And then when you do finally dig in, you're like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
Oh, I love that shirt.
Yeah. I forgot about that word.
And then that one goes on top. And then the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah, over and over again. So what's up? What's new?
Not a whole lot. Just keeping it real.
Are you?
Not really.
Okay, good.
How about yourself? Anything new?
No, not really. We're just, my wife and I are trying to plan family vacation for the kids and that sort of thing. And I hate it. Well, if for those of you who have planned family vacations, you tend to do a lot of legwork, and then you have an idea of what you want to do, and then it just gets like swatted down, and then your next best idea gets swatted down, and then it's rinse, wash, and repeat. You know? And then finally you settle on something that was like your 5th choice, and you feel like you've been used and abused.
Maybe you have.
Well, that's my life right there. So, but other than that, we went and we saw with the families together. We went and saw Lion King.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you've seen the first one,
you've seen the second.
You've seen the second one, or the quote unquote live action one. Mm-hmm. Except, it's like you watched. I argue that you can watch any of that movie when it comes out on DVD or digital or whatever, the new one, and you can walk in, and if you pause the movie and show it to somebody who has not seen the first one, because in a lot of ways this is frame for frame too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And ask them, is this lion happy, sad, or angry, or what emotion is this lion feeling? There's no way you could guess. That's true. And quite frankly, that's the way I like to kind of present myself to my kids. just as an emotionless. Yes. Completely flat affect. Keep them guessing. Keep them on their toes. Your words sound like you're excited, but your face says you are angry. It's just the Terminator. Yes. So you're like, I can't even do it, because when I want to do the Terminator, is like, everything is like this. It's all monotone and nothing is no emotion. Yes. Perfect role for Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor. I cannot believe that he won. No, I can't either. But no politics on the show. No, but it's just funny. It's just funny that. Yeah. Do you remember the? What was it? I think it was. What was the Stallone movie where they made a reference or a joke? It was was it the Demolition Man? Demolition Man, yeah, about Schwarzenegger being the president, and then all of a sudden he was the governor, and at the time it was like, that'll never happen. It was before he was the governor. Oh, way before. But it's like, President Schwarzenegger, and then it's like, that's funny, and then all of a sudden he's the governor. I'm still waiting for the 3 shells. I don't know. Oh, you don't know about the 3 shells? I don't know that reference. What? Elaborate. That's kind of the joke of the movie. Like, he goes into the bathroom, and he's like, all I saw was there was no toilet paper, and all I saw were these 3 shells. I have not seen that movie. And they make fun of him and like, he doesn't know about the 3 shells. So I'm that guy then. All right, what are we talking about today? Scoliosis. Oh, everybody's favorite topic, especially Will's favorite topic. Whatever. So, scoliosis. Scoliosis is a sideways curvature of the spine. Yes.
There are really there's kind of two different types and then kind of a couple different subcategories too, but we're going to try to keep this a little bit basic. There's the C curvature, okay, where the spine is really just shaped like a C, so there's
one
just,
way or the other.
There's just one curve.
There's no
Yep.
So it's not like it has to be a specific like to the right or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just one curve.
Yep. And, this could happen in the low back, the mid back, and even like the upper back region. And typically it's just characterized by just a small little deviation to the right or to the left. So think about your shoulders kind of getting closer to one side of your hip.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the other type of curvature is more of like an S-shaped curvature. And this is where the body's actually compensated a little bit more to where most likely it started off as a C shape, but then your upper torso will actually kind of deviate back upward. So it is more shaped like an S.
Yeah, so if you're sitting down or standing up, you shift your hips one way and all of a sudden you're trying to shift your upper body back to midline, basically.
Yeah, your head wants to stay at the horizontal or at level essentially, so your head and your upper trunk will shift to correct itself. So that's where you start to get that S-shaped curvature. But so, I think one of the things that we need to start with is, okay, so how prevalent really is scoliosis?
Probably way more prevalent than people think.
Yes.
You, listener, right now, probably have scoliosis to a degree.
Yeah, so like they basically measure scoliosis by like the angle of the curvature. And the exact data in terms of when it becomes like a real problem is someplace, it's somewhat debatable, but it's someplace between like 15 and 25 degrees.
And even then it's probably just personal related, right? It's like somebody might live with something at like 15 degrees or whatever.
Oh yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to have pain.
It doesn't bother them, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to have pain. But most people are going to have some unevenness, some curvature to the spine. So
it's like your leg lengths. No one's legs are perfectly.
Yeah. But one of the frustrations we have probably as therapists is that patients will come in and a lot of times they'll have x-rays of their spine, and two things will show up on their x-ray. First, we've talked about in the past is
arthritis.
I've got arthritis. Yeah, I absolutely
have
arthritis.
I have pain. Like,
yeah, maybe not the cause. And then the next thing is, the doctor also said that I have scoliosis. Okay, well, so how severe is the scoliosis?
Yes,
right. And so
this is especially bad for back pain people. If they're coming in for hip pain or whatever, then they probably wouldn't think two thoughts about that.
Yes.
But if it's back pain,
upper back, and or
if they come in with back
spine,
pain and they take an X-ray and they're like, oh my god, you have arthritis, and oh my god, you have scoliosis.
Yeah. So people come in and they panic.
Yes.
Right.
Their brain is immediately, I'm a broken person.
Yes. And so the truth of the matter is, like, below, anywhere below like 7% curvature is extremely, extremely common. Yep. Like, and most of the time is completely irrelevant to pain.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that we just have to
understand.
It's
hard for people to understand that, because in a lot of ways you think, if structurally this is wonky, it should be the reason that I'm having the pain.
Yeah. Except the body's highly adaptable.
Yeah.
And it accommodates all these types of changes, which actually you just said a real key word there, which I think is important, because there's another differentiation that we need to probably make in regards to scoliosis. And that's what's considered structural scoliosis and functional scoliosis.
What does that mean?
Wait, well, thank you for asking, Will. It's so kind of you. So structural scoliosis is when we actually have structural changes. So what I mean by that is, like, the bones of the spine have actually started to wedge and will actually change shape based upon years and years and years of compression and maybe habitual patterns, posture patterns, things of that nature. So there'll be actual wedging that occurs. So the structures have physically changed.
So imagine sitting with your knees kind of underneath you, and you're kind of, they're shifted one side, like kind of like way women usually kind of sit on the floor. Mm-hmm. When they're not sitting crisscross applesauce, they're sitting with their knees together, and kind of like in that classic picture. Mm-hmm. And you sit like that constantly. Mm-hmm. It's going to eventually it's going to start changing your body.
Yeah, but the key here is that it's actually typically a structural change of the bone.
Right.
Yeah. So the bone itself becomes wedged on one side so that you kind of lean to one direction.
Right.
Okay. Now, functional scoliosis is where there's a change in muscle length and muscle strength, and therefore the spine is actually just pulled into a different direction.
Right.
So those are very easily fixable. Those are usually problems that people or things that are noted in X-rays and things like that are that below that 7.5% curvature. Okay, very easily you can have a 7.5%, 10% curvature that's just functional because one side of the spine is weaker and one side is tighter than the other. And those are usually the ones that actually will cause more of like a dull ache also, because of the fact that there's a muscle imbalance.
Yeah.
There's a major muscle
You'll feel
imbalance.
really tight on one side and achy on the other side, probably.
Yeah. So typically speaking, when we start looking at the hierarchy of these how we treat scoliosis, there's a couple different things that we want to keep in mind. There's conservative treatment, which is going to be stretching, strengthening. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. Then when you get a little bit more curvature in the spine, say in that 20-degree range, they may actually talk about doing bracing.
Right.
Okay, especially if it's structural. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Where's
then
the bones,
yep,
not necessarily the muscles.
And then eventually down the road, if it becomes so severe, they'll start talking about actual fusions and surgeries. When you start to get to that point, they're concerned more about breathing, because when we start to get so side bent in and through and around the chest, you can start to have some pulmonary issues, breathing issues. And then also cardiovascularly, you can start to have some changes and effects of the heart. If that area is so compressed, the heart may not actually be transferring some of that blood throughout the body quite as well as what it used to. But those are things that are very obvious when you go and see your physician. When you have those types of issues. Those things don't sneak up on you.
You will definitively know that you have very bad scoliosis at that point. It isn't like, my back kind of hurts. Like, no, that's that person you see sitting where their shoulder is almost touching the seat of the chair on one side. You're like, oh, that doesn't look right.
Yeah. And a lot of times there'll be large, what we consider like rib humps too, which are things that you can see, like if you're a woman, you can see like you can have difficulty, or you can see misshapen stuff, and like when you're putting on your brassiere.
So not bra anymore. We're now saying brassiere.
I don't know why I said that.
I don't know.
Brassiere. What did I hear that from? I don't know.
Anyways. Man bra? Bro?
The bro. I think I might be needing that pretty soon. I need to lose some LBs here. Anyways, so or if you're looking at yourself in the mirror in the back, you can see that obviously there's more of a hump on one side versus the other, because a lot of times with scoliosis there is a little bit of a rotational component that actually occurs too. But that's in the rib cage. That can affect of course cardiovascular and pulmonary function also. But again, these are typically things that are not things that sneak up on you.
No. Well, I mean, it might have snuck out you on the beginning, but then at that point,
you're typically aware of it.
Yeah.
So, what we'd really like to talk a little bit more about today is probably more just what can we do from a physical therapy standpoint, what can we do on our own, self stretches, things like that.
Yeah, because if it's the muscular stuff, that is infinitely doable at home.
Yeah, and even structurally, if you are having some wedging, the key is still to, do some things that
try
are
to open
going
up the other side, literally.
Yeah, do some things that are going to allow your body to not continue to move in that direction. Because a lot of times what ends up happening here is, you start off with a functional scoliosis, you stay tight on one side and elongated on the other side, and so you stay in that position, and over a period of time that functional scoliosis turns into a structural scoliosis. So even if it's turned into that structural scoliosis, you can still you do some stretches and strengthening to help keep that from getting any worse.
Yeah, so and alleviate a lot of the problems you're probably currently having.
So really, this really is pretty darn simple, okay? When we start talking about just standard scoliosis, there's two ways to stretch, okay? You're either going to stretch with the initiation at the shoulders, or you're going to stretch with the initiation at the hips.
That means the beginning. You're starting either at the shoulders or the hips.
Dumb this down for me. Yeah, thank you. So let's talk about a C curve first, right?
Because that's easier.
Because it's easier. So a C curve is just a simple curvature where, again, you're having a C-shaped curve into one direction. So I might just be slightly leaning to my right.
Yes. Okay. So we're leaning to we're everybody picture we're all leaning to our right.
Yep. So what that would indicate is that the musculature on the right side of the spine is shorter.
Yep.
And the musculature on the left side is longer.
Yes.
Okay. So we can stretch that out in two different ways. We can either just basically take our shoulders and shift them to the left and stretch.
Oh yeah, that works. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is going to stretch out that short muscle on the right. And it's going to compress the longer muscles on the left. And we can even use that as a isometric contraction and really try to tighten down that direction to try to get a little bit of strengthening on that side.
Yep, just going to brace it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. The other way we can try to treat that is if we do just what we would consider a side glide. So we get up against the wall with our right side against the wall, and we shift our hips to the wall. So now we're initiating the movement at the hips.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're doing a hip check to the wall.
Yep, and that's what I would really suggest for people typically, and that's going to give you a little bit of strengthening also. What I would typically suggest is if you have a C curve, do just the first example that we talked about, just the side bending to the opposite direction.
Yep.
Okay, that's the simplest one. When you start talking about an S curve, okay, that's where I like to actually do more of the initiation with the hips. I feel that the S curve stretch.
Yeah, because you got to get kind of the upper and lower.
You got it. Yeah. So it's a kinetic chain. So the reason why you start to develop an S curve is because the upper body, there's an upflow that occurs. So the thoracic spine and the cervical spine kind of follow suit, and they adapt to the lower trunk.
Yeah, because your center of gravity is basically not quite, but it's basically your hips. So everything is going to stem from there. So if there's a curve down there, it generally doesn't originate. The original curve doesn't come from the upper and then move to the lower. It's usually lower, and then the upper is trying to correct.
That's exactly it. So I would definitely recommend if you have an S curve to do the stretching initiated at the actual hips. But that I mean, really is it. I mean, it's not if you're not in the place where you're bracing. I think the big thing from our perspective, like the DIY therapy perspective, is understanding that scoliosis isn't this terrible diagnosis. Most people have it in some capacity. Yeah. And simple stretches in one direction and strengthening in another direction are all you need to do. You just need to know where to initiate those stretches.
Yes, yeah, that's a big trick. And then, depending on how it feels, because it's differentiating pain is for people sometimes a little bit tricky. Mm-hmm. Like, is the pain you're feeling now tightness, or is it because the muscle's overstretched? Mm-hmm. Because it can be either one. The one that's tight may not hurt, and the one that's overstressed, stretch might hurt, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It might.
So you could also do like a trigger point release on the one that's really tight.
Yep.
So just like laying on a set of tennis balls on if you're, again, let's take our example of we've got just a curvature to the right. So we have the muscles on the right side are going to be more tight.
Yep.
We're going to just lay on tennis balls that are sitting just right of the spine that can just act as a little bit of trigger point release, and then we could do a stretch to the opposite direction.
So the idea with the trigger point is you'd lay on the tennis ball for like a minute or more.
Yeah, 90 seconds.
Yeah, depending on how it feels. You'll if you're doing it right, you'll almost feel like a release.
Yeah,
like it's almost like let's go.
Yeah, the pain will actually go away.
Yeah, because it's
so it'll feel real tender at first.
Yeah, it's the way I always kind of with trigger point. I always kind of describe it as basically you're turning your computer on and off, because what's happening with the muscle is tight is part of the muscle is still flexed, right? So the trigger point acts like it's a hard reset of your phone or your computer. Like your computer is being sluggish because part of it's still working, right? So you do shut those parts off. You literally just turn the whole thing off and turn it back on. That makes sense? You're looking at me like...
I wish we had video of this.
Yeah, because I'm actually explaining it, and you're just sitting there looking at me like I'm stupid. Or actually, no, not stupid. You're like, this sounds interesting. I'm just going to sit here with my hand on my chin and just,
Well, I hadn't heard that analogy before.
Is that not good analogy?
It's not bad. It's
good for somebody who doesn't fully understand what's happening.
Yeah. We'll go with it.
That way they can wrap your brain around why it does what it does.
Yeah, and it turns off the tone. It just, I mean, so it allows you to have a more
toner like in your printer. That's why when you turn it on.
Oh my God! Yes. Stop it! Yes, no,
yes.
Stop. You're done. We're looking. By the way, there's an opening for a new podcast partner. Applications, send them to my email, Nat Wills.
Very, very few people can do what I do. And if
what?
I don't even know what I do.
We're not sure what either of us do.
Well, if you're looking to send in applications, go ahead at DIYtherapy206@gmail.com and we'll read every one of them. Well, I won't. I'll send it to Andy. I'll just forward it to Andy, and he can read them, and he'll have to deal with it.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, that basically kind of wraps it up, doesn't it? I mean, it's fairly simple.
If anyone ever has more specific questions, like if they want to know how to tell which one your curve is,
yeah, absolutely.
You could definitely email us at that email address, or you can go to if you like, because we can talk you through how to do it.
We do offer consultations.
With wellness consultations, because it's relatively easy to do over the internet. It really is. It's not difficult. A lot of it is just, you may even want to do like the wellness consultation too, just because a lot of it is just like recognizing you may need somebody to recognize what kind of patterns you're into that are causing this.
It's just direction.
You're sitting in a position, or you're standing in a position, or you're hanging out in a position for too long. Yeah, and you just need somebody to like. It seems silly, but sometimes you just need somebody outside your box to see. Oh, you're just doing that a little bit too much.
You just need some objective information.
I've been looking at the way you're sitting while you're just sitting there, and you're shifted the entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, and that's the scoliosis, and this type of treatment for it falls in line with like pretty much all of our philosophies. Is that the idea here is that our habitual patterns typically cause a lot of issues, but we're so ingrained in them that it's hard for us to see it because we're in it every single day. And again, like Will, alluded to earlier, you just need somebody from an outside perspective who has a trained eye and a trained ear to listen for those patterns to point them out to you.
Yeah, and even we sometimes need somebody outside of us to point out, oh yeah, you're doing that. That's why that hurts.
Oh, when we have pain, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's why it's so. I never ever talk to a patient and I'm like, why is this person doing that? No, because it's so easy to just get in habits and not to. Because I get in the same patterns too all the time, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm doing this, and not until my pain comes on that I've got to really kind of reflect back and go, okay, what am I doing? So even for the trained professional, it can be difficult to identify. So yep. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got too. I was going to say, if you know anybody that's got some back pain or anything like that, go ahead and share this with them. That'll help. And remember to, you guys are our best resources for letting other people find us.
Yeah, and not only find us, but if you have any other topics that you want to talk about, we're glad to.
Yeah, anything silly or stupid or
good
or good. Yeah, I'll take that too.
Yeah. And we will be glad to share our wealth of knowledge and experience with the users or with the listeners.
What's the exact opposite of wealth? I have that. Poorness. I don't have poorness. That's not right.
It doesn't fit.
No, it doesn't work at all.
No.
My lack of knowledge? That works.
There you go. We'll go with that.
But why is it wealth of knowledge and not...
You'll have to ask a linguist. I'm not sure.
That seems like something I'm not going to do.
Yeah, me neither. My wife's a speech pathologist. Does that help?
No.
Yeah, you've talked to her. That's not going to work well.
No.
Yeah. All right. On that note,
let's wrap it up. This podcast was for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember,
treat yourself.